Hello and welcome to Projects in Java. Our first project in this series is going to be to create a media player application using JavaFX. The IDE that we're going to be using today is Eclipse. So first what we're going to do is go ahead and demo the app, and then we'll set up the IDE for JavaFX. Here's Eclipse, and here is our finished media player application. Let's run that and take a look. So we have a video playing here. There's a slider at the bottom to keep track of the time, and you can use this to jump around in the video. You have a volume control slider that adjusts the volume. You can mute it by going all the way down. You have a pause and a play button and a file chooser at the top. So let's go ahead and install JavaFX in Eclipse, and then we'll start creating the project. To install software in Eclipse, you click the Help option at the top, then Install New Software. Here we have a work with when we need to enter in a site there. We can get that from the Eclipse website. If we search Eclipse and then JavaFX, we'll get taken to this page. And it has two links in here that we need to install. The first is Xtext. This is a prerequisite for JavaFX. So we'll take this first link and enter it into the work with field. And it'll show pending for a little while, and then it'll download all the software that's available on that site. Once this loads, we need to choose Xtext. We can choose the latest version, get that installed, and then we can install JavaFX using the first link. And here you have the Xtext. And then JavaFX. So you install the version that you need for your Eclipse. My Eclipse is Kepler, and I already have that installed. So after you install JavaFX, Eclipse is going to restart, and then you can create a JavaFX application. So to do that, you go to File, New, Project. And there's going to be a folder for JavaFX and an option for a JavaFX project. I'm going to go ahead and name this player. You can name this whatever you like. And so the way I have this project set up is I have three different classes. I have the main class that starts the application, a player to play the video or audio, and then a control bar, and that's the bar at the bottom to control the media. So we'll start first with the main application. If you created a JavaFX project correctly, you should see the main Java file. We'll just edit this. So we're going to delete this pre-entered text here, and we're going to leave it with main and start. So the main function just launches the application, and then the start function is where we can set our stage, we can show the video, and add the media control. Even though we haven't created the player class yet, we'll go ahead and add it here and create it later. So we're going to set up the player class to take a string argument, and we'll have our video file as the argument. Next, we need to add this player to the scene. So we'll create a new scene with that player. We'll have a height and width, which this is going to be based on the video that I'm playing. And the background is going to be set to black. Then we need to add this scene to our stage. We do that by setting the scene. And last thing we need to do in this file is show the stage. And that's just primary stage.show. We'll do an import of this color class. And so this is very important. When you're importing, make sure to choose the JavaFX classes. If you import something else, you might have difficulty either initiating the class. You might have a class that is not compatible with a JavaFX application. So make sure you choose JavaFX on the imports. We have one error on this page, and that's because we haven't created the player class yet. So let's go ahead and create that. And we'll go to New Class, and we're going to name that player. So this player class is actually going to extend border pane. And the reason we're doing that is because a border pane has regions. The ones we're going to use, the regions we're going to use are top, center, and bottom. So that'll give us easy access to input our menu bar, our media, and our media control bar. We'll create the default constructor. And we need to make sure we have that string argument. We'll do our import of the border pane. To create the media, we need three different things. First is the media itself, then a media player, and a media view. And each goes into the other. So first we start with the media, then that media goes into the player, and the player goes into the view. We'll do those imports, making sure to choose JavaFX each time. And here we'll create a new media with the file that we input. We'll create the player with that media. And finally the view with that player. So now that our player is set up, we're going to want to add that player to the center. And before we add that to the center, we need to add that to a pane. We'll call that mpane. Import that as well. We'll initialize it. And then add the view to the pane. To do that, we need to call the function getChildren. After that, we can add the view. So we have this media pane, and we need to add it to the border pane, which is our player class. So we can call that function directly. And so that adds the mpane to the center of this player. And the last thing, we'll make the video play. So we'll run this, and you can see our video is playing already. And we're going to add a new class. We'll name this media bar. And so the media bar class that we're going to create is going to extend HBox. HBox stands for horizontal box. It's part of the JavaFX package, and it's a horizontal box that we're going to put at the bottom. We'll create the default constructor first, and that is going to take a media player object And the reason why we're going to include that is so that we can control it from here. We'll import both of those, remembering to import JavaFX. Some objects that we're going to have here are sliders, one for the time, and another for the volume. Let me add those. And import those. Another thing we're going to have is the play button. And we'll set that to be a pause button actually, since we're going to start our video right away. We also need a label for our volume slider. And a media player for this class. And the first thing we'll do on our constructor is we'll set the player here to the player that we're creating the class with. Now what we're wanting to do here is we're going to need to make this look right. If we just add these sliders and these labels, they're not going to look formatted correctly. So we want to, make that nice and slick. So the first thing we're going to do is set the alignment of this H-box to center. And we'll create some padding. Now, another thing for formatting that we want to do is set the sizes. So we want the time bar to be the largest bar and the volume bar to be a little smaller. So let's set the preferences for the volume slider. So the first thing we'll do is we'll set a preferred width. We'll set that to 70. And then we'll also set a minimum width. And we'll do that for 30. We also need to do this for the time bar, but we'll do it a little differently since this needs to have the highest priority. And we'll do that by putting in hbox.setHgrow. We'll put our time slider in, and priority is set to always. We also need a preferred width for our play button. The reason why we need that is because when it switches, it is going to switch size. And we don't want that to happen. We want to look like the size is static. So we'll set preferred width to 30. Okay, and the last thing we need to do for the volume bar is set the value to 100. The reason why we're setting it to 100 is because that is the default value for the player. Now that we have all these set up, we're going to add these to the media bar itself. And since this is the class that we're using, we can call getChildren directly. And first is going to be the play button. We want to do them in order so that it looks right. Next one is going to be the time slider. Then we need the volume label and the volume slider. Okay, so now that these are added to the actual media bar, we need to create a media bar in the player. And we'll do that before it starts playing. And we need to make sure to pass it our player. And so here we have our border pane again, and we'll actually add the bar to the bottom. To do that, we put set bottom and our bar into that function. Make sure we got everything set up correctly and hit play. And our bar is at the bottom. So now we want to add some color to that. So we want to have like a nice gray to separate the video from the bar. We'll add about 30 pixels to the video. And we want to set the color from our border pane. So here we can set style. We're going to use an FX background, color, and we'll set that to this hex color. And we'll see if that makes it look right. And so now it does. So the button, now we're going to go into the media bar. And so here in the media bar, the first thing that we're going to work with is our play button. So we want to create an action for our play button. And we can do this by calling set on action. So this is the action that gets called whenever you press the button. We're going to pass that a new event handler. And you can see Eclipse will actually give us a description of what to put in. And there's the syntax for it. In here, we're going to create a handle function that has an action event. Going to make sure to import our JavaFX classes. Okay, and so now we're ready to enter in our action, our logic for the pause and play button. So first thing that we need to get is the player status. So we'll create a new status variable. and we'll get the status from the player. Do our import. Since our video starts off playing, we're going to go ahead and check that first. So if our status is equal to status.playing, so if our status is equal to status.playing, we are going to also check to see if we're at the end of the video. And the reason why we're checking to see if we are at the end of the video is because if the video ends, the status is still playing. And so we need to get the current time by using this function. And we can use greater than or equal to, and we're going to get the total duration. And so what we're checking here is if the current time is greater than or equal to the total duration. So this means we're at the end of the video. So if we're here at the end of the video, we're going to play the video again from the beginning. So we can call the player seek function, and we're going to use the start time, which normally we can use 0, but we are going to get the start time just to be safe. And we'll play the player again. Okay, and so the other status that we need to check is if it's not playing, and there's actually a few different ones. So we'll check all of them to make sure we fall into this branch. So we have status.paused, or we also have halted, and status.stopped. So if we fall into any of these, we need to go ahead and start playing the video again. So here we'll play the video, and we'll set the text of the play button to a pause button. Okay, and before we launch this to check it, I left out an else condition here, where if we're not at the end of the video, we are just going to go ahead and pause it at the current location. So we'll call player.pause, and we'll set the text of the player button to a play button. And we'll just use the greater than symbol for that. Okay, and so let's go ahead and see if this is working. And our play and pause button is working correctly. So the next thing that we're going to do is update the slider, the time slider. So what we want is the effect that the slider is following the current time. So to do this, we need to add a listener to our player. And we're going to add this to the current time property. So we'll call player.currentTimeProperty.addListener. And this is going to be a new invalidation listener. And a function here we'll call invalidated. And so here we'll call another function that we're going to create that we'll name update values. And we'll create that outside of the constructor. And so we want this to be runnable. So we'll create this with platform.runLater. We'll pass that a new runnable. We'll have another function in here. We'll call this run. And so here we need to update the time value. So we'll get the time object, the time slider, and set the value to the player current time. And we'll put that as milliseconds. Divided by the total duration, also in milliseconds. And multiply that by 100. Okay, make sure I have all my errors corrected before I test this. And we'll see if the slider is updating. So now the slider is moving across. We need to create another function so that we can seek. We can jump to a certain part of the video that we want to look at. And to do that, we need to add a listener to the time slider. So same concept here. We're going to call the value property and add a listener to that. Same type of listener, new invalidation listener. And so here we need to check if the time is pressed. And if it is pressed, we're going to seek on the player. So player.seek. we need to get the duration of the video and multiply that by the value. So we'll call player dot get media dot get duration dot multiply. And so we're going to pass a double parameter to the multiply function, and that is going to be time dot get value divided by 100. Okay, and so this is going to make the video jump to wherever we clicked. Okay. And the last thing we need to set up is our volume slider. And we can actually just take this if we want. Since it's a slider, it's exactly the same. Okay. And this time, same thing. If the volume is pressed, we'll change the volume. And to set the volume on the player, we have the set volume function. And we'll pass that a double. We'll get the value from the volume slider divided by 100. And our volume works for that as well. So it's very neat what we can do by adding some listeners to our sliders and some actions to our buttons. We're able to control this video and make a very fluid player very quickly using JavaFX. And the first thing that we will create is the menu bar. So the menu bar consists of a menu item, and we'll call this open. And then a menu, call this file. And a menu bar, call this menu. Do our imports. Then we need to add these to each other. So the first thing was we'll add open to file by calling file.get get items dot add open, and we'll add file to the menu by calling menu.get menus dot add file. Now we need to add the menu to the player, and we're going to add that to the top. So we're going to call player.setTop menu. We're going to add about 25 pixels to our scene, and we'll see what that looks like. So we have a file and open menu item. So now what we need to do is set the action for the open button. So we'll call this function set on action. And this is going to be a new event handler. And we're going to have a handle function. Do our imports. And so first thing we want to do is pause the player so that we don't have audio running in the background. We have to take this and put it at the top outside of the constructor or outside of the start function. And the reason why we're moving out of there is so that this function can reach the player. We're also going to need a file chooser. Call this file chooser. And we're going to create a new file with this file chooser. And we are going to open up the file chooser on the stage. We set stage to final. And if file does not equal null, what we're going to do is create another player. And to get the file in the right format, we're going to call these three functions file.toURI, toURL, toExternalForm. And we need to surround this with a try and catch. Eclipse will put that in for you. Create a new scene. And add that scene to the primary stage. Okay, and now we are going to test this. So we have our original video here. See if we can open something else. And now we have an MP3 file playing. So this concludes our Media Player application project. I hope you had fun creating this player and hope to see you in future videos. Thank you.